I am back. What it do, baby?
What it do, baby?
Yeah, you already know.
You know, somebody in the questions for this podcast on the Twitter thread said not a question, but just stream the podcast. And, you know, I might as well, because here I am for the first time doing my podcast inside of OBS, which gives me the ability to use my stream deck. It gives me the ability to use sound effects and whatnot, make it sound like an actual podcast, I guess. And I'm laughing because this is like, what? It's like 64 podcasts in. Yeah, I looked at the number today. Can't catch me slipping no more. I'm organized. Yeah, I'm like, man, why haven't I been using this the whole time? I could have, instead of using Audition and, you know, cutting the gaps between my audio, I could have just threw this in OBS and had a much better time. But anyways, we'll see if that improves the quality and if this actually comes out. And if you don't hear the sound effects, then I'll be taking a big L, because there'll just be gaps when I think there's audio, and it'll sound really awkward. But hopefully it comes out great, as these NBA playoffs have, man. I am delighted. All fans of the NBA should be delighted. We have got great teams playing great basketball and great surprises. So this is my first podcast of the second round, and honestly, I was gonna make a video last night. My whole plan was, you know, I streamed during the day, man. I planned to get on and stream 2K21 for like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and the stream ended up being like 4 or 5 hours. We had a goddamn blast. My career it was a lot of fun to do in front of people. I had a lot more fun doing it than when I just played my career by myself. I normally hate my career. Anyways, that's besides the point. After the Heat game, I was somewhat anticipating Miami to go up 3-0. And I was like, okay, after this game, they've been beating them the same way the entire series. So I was like, after this game, I'm gonna make a video on my main channel showing the X's and O's of why Giannis is, you know, not ineffective against the Heat, but why he can't take over against the Heat. And then I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna do this on the podcast. I'm just gonna talk about it on the podcast, because let's be real, there's gonna be a couple of people that do breakdowns of that. And if you're watching, that's one thing. Second thing, if you're watching the series, it should be crystal clear what's going on here. And third, like, no one should be surprised is the thing. Everyone should know what's going on if you've taken the time to watch the Heat and Bucks match up throughout the season, right? Throughout the season, because if I am doing this off the dome correctly, the Bucks only won one game against the Heat during the season, and that was in the bubble when, who were they missing that game? Probably Jimmy Butler. They were missing some important players that game, so nobody counted that shit. The 2 games they played during the regular season, Miami won without Jimmy Butler, and in Miami they won, and Giannis had a horrible game, and Jimmy Butler did play that one. So I'll be talking about that here, just to do the series count so we know where we are. First of all, I'm sorry if this podcast rubs shoulders with the actual game today, because, man, my sleep pattern is so fucked. My sleep pattern is, do I have a sound effect for that? Nah, I see. That's the one thing with Stream Deck is I have a million sound effects from Stream, and we're scrolling through, I'm constantly scrolling through pages trying to find the right thing. It is what it is, man. Yeah, between the pandemic and the playoffs, like my sleep pattern is just so far gone. So woke up late today, but it is what it is. The Rockets took a 1-0 lead on the Lakers last night, so that's what that series is. The Clippers and Nuggets are gonna play again tonight, and that was that might have been the most uninteresting game of the bubble. Denver was tired, the Clippers are better, so yeah, LA leads by 1 game. Yeah, 3-0 Miami over the Bucks, and 2-1 Boston and Toronto. Man, that pain, bro, just pain. That ruined my whole mood the other day.
Hey!
So let's get to talking about some of these series. Here's what we got, right? I'm gonna go Miami and Bucks first. That's the most interesting thing. There's a lot of stuff that happens, right? There's a lot of stuff that happens. I saw one guy tweet, because, you know, media heads, they talk, and it's about entertainment, and I retweeted the tweet because it was just beautifully put. It was like, it would be much more helpful to the discourse of what's going on right now if media heads would talk about, the media heads that get the most attention, if they would talk about why Giannis is being why he looks, I guess you would say, passive or whatever, why he isn't performing how we expect an MVP to perform, why that's happening against the Heat, instead of just coming out and saying, oh, well, maybe he's just a Scottie Pippen, maybe, you know, the lazy route, right? Because that's what gets clicks. Of course, it's going to get clicks when you see in the headlines that, so-and-so says that Giannis actually isn't this or whatever. And yeah, I agree, because that is just so damn lame, man. It's so lame. You see these takes. I saw, who tweeted that last night? Rachel Nichols, yeah. Rachel Nichols was tweeting about the MVP, and does she have a vote in the MVP? Because I'm gonna guess she did not vote for Giannis, even though he's gonna be, it looks by by all looks of it, he's going to be accepting the MVP at home if they don't give this thing out before next game. Oh man, this is going to be the Dirk Nowitzki MVP all over again, back from like 07. Yeah, she had a tweet talking about how, well, this is why awards need to be, you know, switched up, because the best player isn't necessarily the MVP, whatever she said, right? Let me look so I'm not misquoting what she said, because it'll make a lot more sense. What I have to say will make a lot more sense if I have it right here. I retweeted it last night. She says, I'm gonna say it for the 3004th time. The NBA needs to modernize its awards. Major awards have been untouched for 34 years. Well, I didn't know that. In 1999, the NHL added a scoring award, recognizing that someone can have had the best statistical season without being the league's best and most valuable player. Of course, she tweets that as the, Miami Heat go up 3-0 on Giannis, and Giannis looks, if you're watching him play, it doesn't look like the dominant. If you just look at the stat line, you'll say, oh, Giannis did everything he could, right? 5 to 7 years from now, that's what people are going to do. They're going to look back and say, oh, Giannis didn't have help. Look at the stat line. No, Giannis is not able to be Giannis against this team. Now, anyways, to her point, first of all, here's the thing, right? I don't recall anyone unanimously agreeing that Giannis was the best player in the league. I don't recall that. I don't recall people unanimously agreeing that he was better than Kawhi Leonard yet. I thought we had the understanding after the playoffs last year that Giannis does have limitations to his game. He has limits to his game, to where when you put him up against other guys, it's like, yeah, he might be the most dominant player in the league, but I don't remember calling him the best. Now, see, more than one thing can be true. It can be true he's not the best player in the league, and it can be true that he's the MVP. Because I'm gonna tell you where I was coming into this playoffs and coming into this series. First of all, I tweeted my doubt about the Bucks, and I've talked about my doubts about the Bucks for a long time, haven't I? On the during the season, I was watching them and I was like, hey guys, this kind of looks like the same Bucks team from last year. And then they don't even have Malcolm Brogdon either, so that's one subtraction that I don't think people are even really mentioning that much. I don't see it mentioned that much, but I was like, yeah, this doesn't really look like a team that's figured out the problems that they were dealing with last year. What's going to happen in the playoffs? I don't see how this is going to go differently. We get to the playoffs, and literally the last podcast I was telling you my concerns about the Bucks, and all of this while I've always said Giannis was the MVP this season. I've always agreed that he was the MVP, that he had the MVP performance, that he was going to be MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and I've always pondered the possibility that, man, what if he gets a championship and a finals MVP to go on top of all of this? Because I knew he was going to get the MVP, but then he got Defensive Player of the Year award, which he was contending for the whole year. So I've pondered all of this while understanding in the playoffs something like what we're watching would probably happen. Literally 2 weeks ago, I tweeted out, I'm not sure of much in this bubble, but I'm sure Giannis is not getting a ring this year. Now, I'm doing all this talking while it's a 3-0 series. If they fuck around and, win 4 straight, I'll just take my L, right? Because I can't foresee 4 straight games of what, especially with the way that Budenholzer is coaching this team right now. I don't foresee this Bucks team coming back, and winning 4 straight games, even though they're the first seed and they've got, if any team would come back 4-0 or from 3-0, ever, it would be the team with the first seed and having the Defensive Player of the Year and the MVP. It would be them, right? But just the way they match up with this Heat team, I don't see it. Anyways, yeah, my point with that whole little mini rant is I've been able to acknowledge that he was the MVP this whole year, but also be like, yeah, I still think there's better players, and I don't think he's gonna win the championship this year. And again, Miami, the things that they're doing to make it hard for him are just the things that coming into the series, if you watch my predictions, first of all, I didn't have Miami sweeping them. I'm not gonna sit here and be obnoxious. No, Miami being up 3-0 sweeping, I thought that at the end of some of these games, which they've been close, I think pretty much the end of most of these games have been close, the 2 of them for sure, but I'm blanking on game 1. I said I thought Miami was going to eke out multiple close games, but I expected the Bucks to get some of those too. I expected there to be maybe a little bit of shot making, or just some random fluctuation in events at the end of games of a 1-point or 2-point game that allowed the Bucks to get some. But damn, they might get swept here. I had it as a 7-game series, but it's really quite simple, man. It's really quite simple. The best player has defects. Somebody tweeted me the other day, like, again, after game 1, I think it was a score box watcher or box score watcher, and they were like, I was talking about this not being surprising and Giannis being limited, and they're like, oh, but he had 20 and this many rebounds. I was like, that does not mean he's not limited though. Watch the game, people. If you're gonna make comments on these things, don't just look at somebody's 20 and 10 stat line and assume they did everything they could. Watch the actual game, because what's happening is exactly what you could have predicted to happen. At the end of games, the best player has defects. It's so simple. He can't shoot free throws for shit. The best player on the team cannot shoot free throws for shit. And you are totally fine with if he is gonna spin into the lane and get a foul, or if you're gonna accidentally, if you have to play physical with him at the end of a game and risk fouling him, you live with that because you know there's a great chance of 1 or 2. You know that. What is he shooting this series? I can't. Can I see the series stats right here? That would be very helpful. 3-0 Bucks. Recap. They don't really actually. I wanted to see his actual free throw percentage, but it's not great, especially in game 1. I think it was something like 4 for 12. So there's that. The best player, defect. You can sag off of him because you want him shooting threes, and the Bucks are all too happy to oblige. Especially last night, they were all too happy to oblige with him just pulling up for 3 right there, which I think it might had to do something with his ankle at that point. But off ball, I have serious questions about why they use him off ball the way they do. When he does not have the ball, he does very little other than stand around the top of the key, stand around the 3-point line. He does a lot of that in their offense, and I'm like, yo, he's not effective from there. Maybe if you're wanting him to get ahead of steam and get into the paint, but against this Miami team, their whole defense is like, yeah, nah. Like if you get into the paint, you just beat us. You found an angle and you just beat us. But that's not that. But they're not doing anything to favor that. That wall came out once again. Every time you talk about the Bucks, every time you talk about Giannis, you hear the word wall. It's exactly what's happened here. And again, having a guy like Bam Adebayo, who also, one thing I hadn't accounted for, which I think is contributing to this possible sweep, aside from Bam just being a great defender for him and, you know, being able to push him towards the rest of Miami's defense and whatnot, and having the size to do that, Bam has also helped to get him in foul trouble in some of these games early. And I saw a time where Giannis would have 1 or 2 fouls already, and so Bam would be aggressive down low because, you know, you're trying to get this foul on this guy. Giannis is guarding him. So there's just a lot of things for the Miami to just pick at them with, and Giannis, simply put, because here's the thing, right? I see this generic take on Twitter, this very generic take where people are like, "Oh, Giannis needs to take over. He needs to be MVP." Well, I'm like, okay, well, how do you want him to do that with this team, with this scheme, with what you see in this series? How exactly do you? What's your idea? What's your X's and O's idea of that? And I don't see anything from anybody because it's generic sports media talk. Just, oh, this guy needs to be the man. He needs to do this. I'm like, look at the floor and look at this team. I think the one adjustment they could make to have put them in a better position this series, again, would be off ball and actually having Giannis instead of near the 3-point line, maybe having him in the post. That would at least put a bit of pressure on Miami's defense. I still think he would end up having to kick the ball out because they're not just going to let him post up the same way we knew, you know, if you watched LA play last night, Houston's not just watching Anthony Davis post up. They've got help for him. They're waiting for him. People are sitting on the side. And so that, I think, especially with, you know, Miami trying to keep him out of the post, I think it would put pressure, but I think he would still end up kicking out. And Miami's done a great job scrambling out to shooters. And they've also done a great job just saying, yeah, we'd rather any day of the week, Brook Lopez or George Hill or any of these guys just take long distance shots than have Giannis, you know, make MVP plays in the paint and start dunking and getting the team hype, right? And so even with that adjustment, I don't think this team would be constructed to advance here and win an NBA championship. But other than that, I'm like, how else do you want him to take over with this Giannis? Because his bag it's not that deep. He doesn't have a great mid-range shot. He doesn't have like a go-to move to get into a good mid-range like KD. He doesn't have a great chance at fadeaways and whatnot. KD, even though his back to the basket is not his strongest point, he has that in his bag. And the thing that I think people are figuring out, and instead of saying like, oh, Giannis is a Pippen or Giannis is a number 2, look at Giannis as like the big man that he is. Because we forget that in today's NBA, where 7-footers are all handling the ball and doing this and doing that, we forget that sometimes guys are big men that need other pieces around them. And so when you look at Shaq, you know, being as dominant as he was, he always needed a guard out there. He needed a Penny Hardaway. He needed a Kobe Bryant. He needed a Dwayne Wade. Shaquille O'Neal did not win an NBA championship without that. He did not win an NBA championship without great guard play out there. And so I'm looking at the Bucks now and it's like, okay, Giannis, dominant down low, and especially against most teams, because again, I'm happy as a Celtic fan. I'm happy that Miami is clearing him out of the way because every team don't have the defensive scheme or even the players to pull this off. And so against a lot of teams, he can be successful. But I think going into the summer, especially because I keep saying this summer like we're not going into December. That's just programmed to me from all the years of you know, the offseason actually being in the summer. Going into this offseason, the Bucks need to start looking at what is the desperation move here? What is the desperation move? Because you can't come back with the same team next year. You just can't. If you want to keep Giannis, you can't. You can't come back with Chris Middleton as your, the guy that's going to be the number 2 on a championship team. I can't come back with the same constructed roster. I think it would do them well to, hell, I don't think that, getting Chris Paul on his roster is possible, but I don't know. The reason I posted that LeBron James and Shaquille O'Neal picture from Cleveland yesterday is because when the Cavaliers got desperate to keep LeBron in his contract year, that's what it was. They went and got Shaq, who, by the way, again, hindsight is 2020. When he got Shaq, it was a bit of exciting news at the time because we didn't know he was completely washed. In Phoenix, if you go back and look, he was obviously not Shaq anymore. But today's episode is brought to you by the Tax Defense Group. The team of professionals at the Tax Defense Group are passionate about helping taxpayers resolve their tax debt. Their services include basic tax preparation, tax audits, resolving large tax debt, and more. They actively represent taxpayers throughout the entire USA. If you need help resolving your tax issues, contact the Tax Defense Group at 800-850-7973 to get started. That number again is 800-850-7973, and you can visit them online at thetaxdefensegroup.com. He wasn't abysmal yet. I don't think he was abysmal until he played for Cleveland. But that was their move. They're like, okay, we're gonna get you a name, we're gonna get you a guy that we expect is gonna command some attention, and maybe he'll be able to win this year. And so I'm looking at what the Bucks move is this season, or this offseason with that. And I think it also starts with the coaching. I think Budenholzer got to go. Like, I just do. First of all, there's been two pieces after games that I know of so far where the media asked Giannis a question and he goes, oh, I don't know, I'm gonna do whatever coach wants me to do. He said that the first time and I was like, okay, whatever. He said it the second time, I'm like, all right, it sounds like he's passive aggressively like, yo, this is coach. Like, it sounds passive aggressively that way, right? But if you just also look at what's going on again, people got on Budenholzer for his lack of adjustments in the Toronto series, and now we're here and again, lack of adjustments, losing the same way that you did last year and doing the same things, playing into Miami's hand almost the entire game. Spoelstra has pretty much coached circles around Bud, and Bud, what does he have, 2 Coach of the Year awards now? All right, let's talk about this Bucks team. Let's talk about this team, like what they actually are, because this is interesting to me. I think people, 2 times now in the last few weeks, I've brought up the comparison between Giannis's Bucks and LeBron's Cavs. And you already know the reaction that probably elicits from people. They're just out here.
What?
Yeah, they're looking at that crazy because, first of all, yeah, the Cavaliers back in the day with LeBron, they did not have a Chris Middleton. I fully acknowledge that, right? But there's similarities you can pull here because I watched both of these teams and I think that helps because a lot of people, let's be real, they joined the NBA in the 2010s and they hear about these LeBron teams and all they hear is negative stuff. But I lived through these teams. I lived through the regular seasons. I remember all the talk and I remember watching them myself. And the thing about those Cleveland teams is they were great in the regular season. It was so great that they were great at defense. They had 3-point shooters around LeBron. They were great, and they were great enough to trick people constantly into thinking that, oh, this was the year he was going to the finals to play Kobe all the time, right? 2009, 2010. And for me, when it came to that 2010 season, I wear that shit like a badge of honor that I called the Celtics because it's so crazy. 10 years later, everyone's like, oh, or he was outmatched. But in 2010, it was just like it is today with Giannis and the Bucks, where they would be first and people would be talking about them going to the finals. In their brackets, they would have the Bucks in the finals. It was just like that with Cleveland back then. But I was just looking at that going, guys, are you watching the games? I'm like, this is a great regular season team. But I'm like, in the playoffs, LeBron's going to be out here on an island. They're going to focus on him. There's teams that for the playoffs are going to be a lot deeper. The Celtics is what I said that about. I remember specifically, I printed that shit out and put it on my door because me and my dad had a rivalry back then and he was a LeBron fan. And I printed it out after I think Boston lost a game to Cleveland that year. And I was like, all right, just wait till the playoffs. And I printed it out on my door and I was like, the Cavaliers are not deep enough. I was like, Boston's going to handle them. And people were saying they were going to lose in the first round. And then they beat the Cavaliers, and go listen to the tape. They said, Mike Breen, I believe, he said, what an upset. They called it an upset, man. And the thing is, the regular season, you got to be able to look at these teams and you got to be able to look at their limitations and say, how is this going to work when they match up against a certain team? And so for the Bucks, when I look at them, of course, I want to be 100% clear in being on tape and saying they're better than the Cavaliers were. They're a better team, right? Even having a guy like a sniper like Brook Lopez, they got shooters, they got defenders, guys like George Hill leading the league in 3-point percentage, and then Chris Middleton, of course. but they are limited in the same way in that they have a superstar. That's how I put it, right? When you're looking at the similarities between LeBron's Cavs and Giannis's Bucks, they're limited in the way that they have a superstar that's still developing. He's not where he's going to be yet. He's not the best version of himself. And they've surrounded him with something that would work for the game plan, or something that seems like it would work for the game plan. So superstars that could kill in the paint, that could collapse the defense, and that could kick out and have shooters. And so in theory, they'd be extremely difficult to guard. So that was the same thing, right? LeBron had shooters back in the day. LeBron had, he had the Delonte West and the Mo Williams, even had Wally Zerbiak at the time, guys that would kick out and be ready to shoot. Anthony Parker on the 2010 Cavaliers. But when it came down to the playoffs, that lack of a consistent second shot creator, superstar shot creator, it was their undoing. And while Middleton is a better shot creator than what LeBron would have had, he is not the second superstar shot creator that either one of them would have needed. He is not the superstar shot creator Giannis needs to win a championship. He and LeBron just didn't have one. Like, there was, I guess it was supposed to be Mo Williams at a time, because he even was an all-star, I think, for one season before joining the Cavs. But again, that wasn't the guy. It just wasn't the guy. And I looked at it all season. I looked at Chris Middleton, and as good as he was, I was like, yo, this is not the guy. And it goes back to a rant that I had in March when they were trying to take the MVP away from Giannis after one game, basically. LeBron, I remember, I think they beat the Bucks and they beat the Cavaliers, and everybody declared LeBron MVP right there. The media did what it did. And I was like, yo, if Giannis was playing with an AD level player and LeBron was playing with Chris Middleton, there is no way in the hell you would be able to tell anybody that LeBron James wasn't the MVP. Like, put LeBron on that Bucks team, and then Giannis, of course, him and AD probably wouldn't fit great together, but just give him an AD level player, right? And just have the same exact, numbers and all that stuff. People would absolutely say LeBron is the MVP. And that was my point, because that's when everyone was like, oh, Chris Middleton is this, Chris Middleton. Bro, I was like, Chris Middleton is nice. But I could see through this gimmick, bro. I could see through this. I could see where this is going. And this is where it has went. Great, streaky guy. Chris Middleton is streaky. He is obviously not the one that you want to be depending on at the end of games, at the end of playoff games. And again, the Bucks can be a good team. They can be better than the Cavaliers were. But playoff games are won in that last few minutes where matchups are really important. How does a team close? Who are the closers? How do these teams, how is this team being defended? What are they able to exploit? That's where playoff games are won. And that's where these games with the Heat and Bucks, that's where they've been won. And 3-0, sure, I'm surprised. Miami winning and advancing here, I'm not surprised, because I feel like I've lived through this once. I feel like I've lived through this once where I watched the MVP with a, subpar team that was great in the regular season, but at the end of the day, knowing that they just weren't constructed to go all the way. So I'm very much not surprised there, but everything is matchups. And so as a Celtics fan, I wanted to play Miami. Assuming we can put Toronto away, I've wanted to play Miami more than the Bucks, because again, our guys, I mean, maybe we could figure something out against Giannis, maybe, but I felt like we don't match them nearly as well as Miami. But that's just the matchups, right? That's just the matchups, because the very simple way to look at this, a simple-minded way to be like, oh, Miami just beat Giannis, how does anyone stand a chance? No, that's not how this works, right? It's just same thing. It's always just matchups, just like how the Warriors once upon a time eliminated these like 67-win Mavericks, and then they went on to lose in the second round. It's just matchups, man. It's just matchups. Miami is really, really good, but I like our chances in that series better than I liked it against Giannis, because I don't think our big man is not really our strong point. Our interior defense, it would have been difficult to figure that out. I think the Bucks might have been able to get one over on us, but they're not. It looks like they're about to be gone if they don't. Well, off the first 3-0 comeback in history, it looks like they are going to be gone.
I love it.
Is that all I have to say about this series? Man, it feels like I could just talk about this series all day. Jimmy Butler. I gotta talk about Jimmy Butler. Yeah, I do. I have to give this man his props. I have to give Jimmy Butler his props because, you can go back to a podcast last summer with me, Eric, and Rod talking about his free agency move, and I'll never shy away from looking at Jimmy Butler going to Miami. The fact that I looked at Jimmy Butler going to Miami and I was like, why did he go there? I'll never shy away from that, because again, hindsight is 2020, right? Looking back at it when he went there, obviously I did not account for the come up of Duncan Robinson and the addition of Tyler Hero, just like that, right? So it's like Miami is solid. When I did my season predictions, where did I put them? I think I had them 5th. If I can do it off the dome, I think I had Raptors 1, Sixers 2, I got Celtics 3, and then I had maybe the Pacers 4. I had the Heat either 4 or 5. I can't remember. So really where they finished. But respect to him, because a lot of people probably said worse things than what we said. We were just looking at this like, yo, why go to the Heat with all the options that you have? Why go there? But he really he said that like midway through the season. He was like, people were looking at him like he isn't that guy, and why would he go there? Because he needs, he needs more help than that. And again, Miami had like, they had a perfect offseason, man. They had not only did they have a perfect offseason, right? Because you acquired Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, who is very, very easy to forget that he's not a rookie. Like, that's the thing. He only played 15 games last year, so it feels like him and Tyler Hero just both popped up as the new rookies. No, Duncan Robinson was already there, and he's come up and been an integral part just like that. He had a really, he had an improvement to be an important cog in this team. And then, yeah, Tyler Hero he was an NBA-ready rookie from the jump. I remember watching him in preseason, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy is it. That was just preseason, and it stuck. And so you have that, and then Pat Riley, just the fucking man, gets Jay Crowder, and I'm going to maintain that he got him at little to no expense for the Miami Heat. Because I remember, weren't people having this debate? People were talking about, oh, like, they just gave up Justice Winslow and this, and some people were saying James Johnson was the real thing that they gave up, but they were like, yeah, nah. I think people were saying the Heat had lost that trade and just...
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Bro, I looked at that and I was like, Justice Winslow doesn't play. Like, he's hurt all the time. He's young and he needs to develop as well. He still needs to develop, which is, the obvious hindrance to that is that he's always hurt. Hell, he didn't get to play for the Grizzlies in the bubble because he had some injury. I forgot what it was. And so I was like, this is a playoff team with aspirations that just, for all intents and purposes, acquired a dog. Jay Crowder has been important to what they've been able to do to be annoying on defense for the Bucks. Jay Crowder is also not afraid to let it fly from three. I don't know his exact percentages, but he has his moments. And I remember somebody tweeted to me the other day, like, Jay Crowder sucks. Like, what are you talking about? Jay Crowder sucks. Like, that shit's crazy, man. Because I was like, are you watching the game? Are you watching when he shadows somebody off ball and denies an action? Like, you're not watching any of those things that are going on. That was a great pickup by the Miami Heat. And here they are, about to be in the conference finals. And it's so weird, right? Yeah, just finishing that segment up. Yeah, absolute shout out to Jimmy Butler, because he could have, stayed with the Sixers, which people thought would have, if he would have stayed with the Sixers instead of going to Miami, people would have been like, that was the right move, because if they were a bounce away from possibly, going to OT and then being in the conference finals. Or he could have went other places. Like, I heard Kawhi Leonard tried to recruit him. Like, he had other options, and he went to, the culture, the grind culture, the culture of just... Yeah, I said the other day, like, that's not some corny ass cliche with Miami talking about their hard work and this and that. Like, no, they're for real. These guys are for real. And so yeah, he chose that, and it's working out. It's really weird to think that this is what it's probably going to come down to. Tonight, we don't know how the Celtics and Raptors is going to go. I guess I'll talk about that series I guess that's where I'll go next. But if it turns out to where it's leaning, which it looks like it might be leaning towards Heat and Boston, like, wow, we really got to the point when one of those two teams is going to be representing the East, where most people would have looked at it and said, definitely Giannis. Or, at a point, people would have looked at it and said a healthy Philly, but they've got it, again, their franchise direction, they've got a lot to figure out. So, yeah, Miami, unless they have a historic collapse, which I don't. Oh, that was the other thing. Yeah, the reason I don't see a collapse coming, bro. That game 2, when they were going on to take a 2-0 lead, that was the most rattled I've ever seen an MVP-led first seed team. Like, Miami looked like they were the higher seed. Like, physically on the floor, the bench was on, they were into it, the energy was crazy. Miami was playing with all the confidence in the world for like those first 2 quarters, and it looked like the Bucks were intimidated. Like, you could actually see, like, man, Miami is here on a mission. They're, like Jimmy Butler said, he is here on a business trip. This man is not playing, and the Bucks did not look like they could match the energy, the physicality. And although, again, because they are a good team, they were able to make some of these games close. Yeah, it looks like the king of the East, I guess you would say, which they never really advanced. They never won the East. I don't know if you can call them that, but yeah, they have fallen. And so, damn, yeah, I just thought about that. Wow, at the end of my Eastern Conference video last year, I was like, yeah, we expect Giannis and Kawhi to be dueling for years, and the Bucks were up 2-0 when I made that video, so it looked like the Bucks were going to the finals too. Like, it's just crazy what time changes, right? Because now here we are, Giannis still has not made a finals, and it's to the Heat now. Like, Kawhi's not even here anymore, so it looked like Giannis had a pretty clear shot, and now it's the Heat that have beaten them. Man, you just never know with this league, bro. I love this league. You never know with this league. That's what you saw in the Celtics and Toronto series with OG Anunoby hitting that game winner. By mood, man. Look, when I was in the 8th grade, and I was watching the Celtics take on the Orlando Magic. So that was the year 2009, right? Yeah, that was the 2009 playoffs. So I was at the end of my 8th grade year, and I can remember like my best friend is a Orlando Magic fan, and so I'm a Celtics fan, and the Magic could have gone up 3-1, and which effectively ends most series, right? I know the Nuggets, they lost, they came back 3-1. By the way, I have to talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, most of the time that ends the series. I think the Nuggets were only the 12th team to accomplish that. I can remember like how close we were to losing it, and I was like, man, if we go down 3-1, this is over. Then Glenn Davis hits that game winner, and the rush I had from that, and the depression that I imagine my Magic fan friend was in, because to feel like you're about to end a series basically, and like you can go ahead and move on and start planning for the future, like that exhale that you can take, it feels really good, right? And so I can imagine what despair he was in, because hell, especially now I feel like I've experienced it. Boston was 0.5 of a second from going up 3-0. Kemba Walker made a great play, Tice made a great cut, and it was a great pass from Kemba. The Toronto defense completely lost track of where Daniel Tice was, and that was it. That was all she wrote, right? That's what we thought. 0.5 of a second left. They bring Taco Fall in to guard the inbound. Here's the thing about that, right? I agree with Dragonfly Jones. It's a funny ass Twitter account. I feel like it's a funny computer that runs that account, because like it's just nothing but like hilarious tweets. But anyways, he was like, yeah, like the guarding the inbound is pretty useless for the reason that you just saw, because it never works. Today's episode is also brought to you by Writer Junkie. Are you thinking about starting a business or a side hustle? Well, for all business to be successful, you need a website. Writer Junkie offers website development, content writing, and SEO services for business websites. Call Writer Junkie today at 805-587-7966, and you can visit them online at writerjunkie.com. It never works. You would rather be playing 5-on-4, right? Because the inbounder, unless the play is gonna go where the inbounder gets the ball back, but with 0.5 of a second left, the inbounder can't get the ball back. So at that point, you would rather play 4-on-5 or 5-on-4, where the offense has 4 players on the court trying to catch the ball, and you have 5 defenders. You'd much rather be doing that than wasting that player on an inbound. That's the only time I think Brad Stevens really dropped the ball, because with 0.5 of a second, why the inbounder is irrelevant at that point. I mean, sure, maybe you don't want to give him a clear pass, but 5-on-4 is the better option there, as we saw. And OG, right? He's been killing us from the corner 3 in this series. I don't know what the percentage is, but he's like goddamn PJ Tucker. Every time he's in the corner and like, it looks like Boston might be pulling away in the game, he hits a corner 3. The corner 3 from OG Anunoby was the only shot. I mean, it was the only shot on the court, at least that I remembered, that was that wide open. That's the one they gave up. And as the play was being run, as the referee blew the whistle, on my TV, I just stared at OG. I saw him in the corner. I stared at him for however long it took for them to inbound the ball. And in my mind, I was like, oh wait, watch him. And then I saw the ball swing all the way over to OG. Great pass by Kyle Lowry. This man just chucked it up, and we were 0.5 of a second, and maybe even just a late shot, right? Maybe the ball was still on his fingertips. That's what I was hoping. We were that close away from putting this away, from exhaling and getting ready for, at that point, I felt like it was going to be Miami. And we can put this series behind us, because 3-0, even the other team is broken. They're ready to go home, probably. Now we're sitting here 2-1. In a series that Boston has been in control of for most of the time. They've looked like the better team. I'm worried, because I know just me as a fan, I was ready to exhale. I think the Celtics mentally were ready to exhale just a little bit, because they came into this series and people said the Raptors were going to be tough to put away, and they are the defending champions, minus Kawhi, obviously, so it's not really the same exact thing, but there's still a lot of the guys that were on that team last year that are here. And so they were ready to say, okay, cool, we got them down 3-0, we've broken them. Instead, now the pressure is on Boston, because you've been in control of the series the whole time. You look like the better team. 538, they have some statistical model where they make favorites and whatnot, and that model has Boston as the favorite to win the championship right now. Again, I think that's purely off of stats. But yeah, they were ready to put that behind them, and now they have to face a tough series, because Toronto, if they can eke another one out, all of a sudden you're tied. All the pressure is on this younger Celtics team that I'm hoping is not rattled by what happened. because we've all had that feeling in life with something, right, where you feel like you're done with something, or you exhale and then, oh wait, no, you're not done with that situation. You know how hard that is probably to mentally to regather and to focus in on that. And so Miami's probably gonna, go ahead and put this away. I was wondering if, well, yeah, Giannis is gonna play now. Based off what he said in the interview, he didn't really mention his ankle, so it looks like he's gonna play. I was wondering if he was gonna play, but Miami will probably go ahead and put that away and be rested. And Boston, y'all don't want to make this series any longer than it has to be, because I think the same thing that's happened with Milwaukee has kind of happened with Toronto, where what they've been getting by with during the regular season isn't as easy to get by with in a certain matchup in the playoffs, or as you get deeper into the playoffs. And so obviously for Milwaukee, not having much of a game plan off ball, or everything we just discussed as going into that 3-0 lead, right, that caught up with them. And to this point in the series with Toronto, to the point that they were about to go down 0-3, not having a elite and superb mid-range scorer, or just a superstar that can just go get the shot, like Kawhi Leonard, the guy who left, not having that had caught up with them. Pascal Siakam to that point had not been the guy that they paid him to be, and he's still very early on, right, but he hadn't even really been his regular season self. That was one of my keys in predicting this series. I was like, is Pascal Siakam going to be able to raise the level of his play to not replace Kawhi Leonard, because you can't replace Kawhi Leonard, but replace some of that void that he left in the half court? Because you can't, I mean, it's kind of hard to just run your way to a championship. That's what they're really good at. They're good at fast breaking, but in the playoffs, if you struggle in the half court, I don't have great examples in my head of teams that couldn't execute in the half court, or didn't have half court stars that went on to win that championship. I really don't recall. So that's the thing, Toronto, that's why they're so often playing from behind in this series, or while they'll get a little bit of breathing room against Boston and then they'll lose it, because Boston can execute in the half court. And if the Celtics don't have turnovers, which they kind of did, they didn't play a good game in game 3 and still almost won. But if they're turning over the ball, if they're not turning over the ball and they're getting what they want in the half court, they basically win that against a team that doesn't. Sometimes it looks like Toronto is just trying to I don't even know in the half court. Like, you see some shots from Fred VanVleet. Most of the time it's Kyle Lowry trying to get off in transition, because in the half, like, Jaylen Brown has done a superb job guarding Pascal Siakam, and he's giving up some inches there, but he's done a good job at that. And so now it's like it's a mentality thing, I think, more than anything, because Boston clearly, even though they're not as deep, I think for the playoffs in this series, they are better equipped. They've got the 3 best half-court scorers in this series. You got Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, all doing good. You've got transition defense, which has been a key for Brad Stevens. Like, that's all I hear the commentators talk about. Robert Williams has come in actually and provided some great minutes off the bench. I'm not sure if he is still perfect from the field against them, but to a certain point he had been. So you've got the advantages. Now it's a thing of don't let the champs rattle you, because you had them put away and now you're giving them life. Don't let them tie the series tonight, please, Boston. Because I tweeted about this. I was just saying, like, man, this is the first time me as a YouTuber and as somebody who covers the NBA, this is the first time I've really actually believed my team could make some noise. Like, let's just look at it. I became a YouTuber officially in 2016. That's when I really started to get any type of notoriety. And so to that point, like, Boston, there's never been a year where I looked at it and said, wow, Boston can really do something. Because in 2017, I never believed in the Isaiah Thomas Celtics. I'm documented everywhere. I had them going out in the first round, actually, and I think I was right until Rondo got hurt in that Chicago series. In 2018, I was actually surprised at how far they went without Kyrie and Hayward. Yeah, I just called that wrong. I didn't expect a rookie, and then Jaylen Brown. I didn't expect that at all. I didn't expect them to come up and get one win away from the NBA Finals. But even then, I wasn't as excited, because I was excited to possibly make the finals. Absolutely. Hell, even going through that season, I actually felt like, you guys don't remember, the Celtics with Kyrie used to actually match the Warriors pretty well. They actually used to play them pretty well. So I didn't feel like we could ever beat them. But I was like, let's get into a final series and just see what happens, right? You just want to get there and get a chance. But without Kyrie and Hayward, I was realistic. I was like, okay, we beat LeBron James and get to the finals, we're going to get waxed by the Warriors. We're going to get swept. I thought that was going to happen that year in 2018. I was actually hoping that, okay, maybe if they play the Rockets, I mean, they'll still probably get beat, but at least there's a puncher's chance. Against KD Warriors with no Kyrie or Hayward, I was like, there's not a chance in hell. So bottom line, I didn't believe 2018. Other than some fun and just having my team there, I didn't really have any belief. Now though, man, no MVP in the conference in a couple of days here. Looks like Giannis will be dispatched from the playoffs. The Toronto, the defending champions, who are a deadly matchup for some teams. It looks like if we can get rid of them, we'll be playing Miami. They definitely have a chance to win that series. And then who knows who's going to be in the finals here. I mean, the LA is down 0-1 and they lacked all life against Houston last night, but that doesn't speak for the whole series, right? Anyways, you don't fully know who's coming out of the West. There's no super team is my point. There's no super team. There's no KD Warriors. There's no just unbeatable juggernaut. There's great teams, but there's been great teams before. So now it's like, wow, for the first time having a platform, my team might actually be able to make some noise. So don't lose to Toronto, please, because we were almost up 3-0. That would hurt. That would hurt my entire soul. That would hurt my entire soul. And it would also kill my bracket, because I made some great calls in my bracket this year. If you look at the predictions, yeah, my playoff predictions were pretty spot on for most of these series. Most of them came with within a game. So if Boston fucks this up, because I called to the Celtics and the Heat, and when I called Celtics and Heat for the conference finals, I felt like I was calling I think most people probably had like the Bucks there, or they had the Celtics getting beat, one of those. They didn't have Celtics Heat. I don't think a lot of people had Celtics Heat as the dead on conference finals, and I looked at both of these teams and I was like, yeah, both of these teams could win this series. So yeah, keep my bracket perfect and keep my sanity well. Please. So that's basically what I have to say about the East series. We'll see what happens with Boston tonight. Good luck. In the Western Conference, we had some great basketball, man, since the last time I got on pod. We had two thrilling game sevens, Denver and Utah, and Houston and OKC. Just some of the best basketball we've seen, right, in terms of like series and final games and final moments. Should I talk? Yeah, I'll talk in order, because somebody actually this should technically go in the question section, but I guess I'll just mix it in here since it has to do with the topic. Somebody was asking about the Denver and Utah series, and was it Cole? Damn, I didn't write the name. It said Utah versus Denver all-time playoff rankings of that series. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you, Denver and Utah is the greatest series that I've watched since the Celtics and Bulls of 2009, which was the greatest playoff series of all time in my opinion. We all have our rankings, right? And it felt so similar because the Celtics and Bulls, Ray Allen and Ben Gordon went at it just like back and forth. It was crazy, man. Shot for shot, they were just, you had to be there and watch it to see how thrilling those were, and it had crazy amount of overtimes and close games, and it really went down to the wire. So best playoff series I've ever watched. Denver and Utah, it's right there behind it. And it's funny because people brought up, they were like, oh, did 2016 not exist? Yo, 2016 was like blowout. That series had one superb game. The rest of those were not that great. Like, how do people not remember this? Like, Golden State kicked Cleveland's ass in, what was that, game 2 or game 1? One of those games was close for a while until Golden State pulled away at the end. Then another one of those home games, they just fucking detonated on them. Game 3, Cleveland came back and blew them out. Game 4 was close, I remember, and then Golden State pulled away at the end. Game 5 was that 41-41 game from Kyrie and LeBron. Game 6, Cleveland dusted them, and game 7 was a great game. And so, like, you had your ins and outs, right? And I'm not saying that wasn't a good series, but I'm saying a lot of those games were not like tit for tat. They really weren't. They were like pullaways at the end. They were, dudes just flat out getting destroyed, getting their head bounced off the ground. It wasn't like that same intensity. Even though it's a final series, every game did not carry that tit for tat that makes a playoff series in the GOAT conversation, in my opinion. Game 7, I think, clouds people's judgment, because game 7 was possibly the best game a lot of us have ever watched. That was the most intense game. I didn't have a team in that series, and that's probably the best game I've ever watched, and one of the most stressful games I've ever watched. But yeah, then people also go to like 2013 Heat and Spurs. I'm like, dude, again, same thing. Like, game 1 I remember being great, but game 2, that was a game LeBron James slapped splitter shot, like the whole arena could hear the block. Yeah, he dusted them in game 2. Yeah, I actually can't remember the full sequence of that, but I remember there was a lot of blowouts until game 6, which was obviously, again, one of the best games that we've seen. And game 7 was really good too. So there was good games, but again, a lot of the series was missing that tit for tat. Denver and Utah, you had Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray both hit 50 multiple times in the series, right? you had them going back and forth at the end of games. And yeah, sure, yeah, Utah did go up 3-1 by virtue, and they blew them out twice. They blew them out twice, which made us question, like, yo, that's what made me question it. If you go back to my podcast, my last podcast, I was like, Denver just got blown out twice, and they're down 3-1. I'm like, how is this, how does this series become a thing now? And it did. Denver, they got it together, and Jamal Murray, his wheel was just fucking incredible. We recently launched our website, UCastStudios.com, with articles about sports, special interest topics, and more. We've got some cool stuff there. To read our content, please visit UCastStudios.com. And Utah could have put them away a couple of times and didn't. And then you had an epic Game 7. And so maybe I'll have to do a series of the greatest playoff series of all time, right? The one that from years ago that I haven't finished. Now maybe I have to go look at, the difference between some of these series and what truly makes them and puts them in that conversation. And maybe it's recency bias, but yeah, Denver and Utah is the second greatest one I've ever watched. That's where it ranks. The story that I hope the NBA follows, because the NBA does sell storylines. They are showmen. And so if Jamal Murray can continue his stardom into next season and whatnot, you got to start building storylines for your younger guys, man, because it can't be like LeBron and Steph forever, or LeBron and KD. Like, it can't be these guys we love forever. You got to start, you got to start giving your younger guys names. And so Donovan Mitchell, just a crushing blow the other night. Like, hey, he's got a career arc now you can follow. And we'll see what happens with Jamal Murray, because again, I predicted coming into this Clippers series, I don't think he's gonna have the same type of series, but we'll see, because Denver, just because they got blown out in game 1 doesn't mean that still can't be like a good 6 games, but we'll see what happens with that. And then of course Houston and OKC was amazing as well. Shout out to Houston for not falling into slander land, because had they lost that series to Chris Paul, oh my gosh, like had they lost that after the trade last year, and you already know all the slander Westbrook gets, which I was talking to Eric, by the way, and I was asking, like, yo, does Westbrook even care? Because like there's other players, like, you can get to them through social media, you can say things about them and they listen, but like Westbrook seems like he always just comes out and he always plays how he plays. He plays at 100 miles per hour. His flaws remain his flaws. His good qualities remain his good qualities, and you never hear him really address any of the slander. And I wonder if he even reads any of it, or if he even fucking cares. Like, here's Twitter, about to like completely take a dump on his legacy, because the team that he was traded from was about to beat his team now that he's on, and in the first round. And it's like, man, would he have even gave a shit? I truly think he just plays basketball and that's it. I think that's just it, man. But Houston pulled it out. People wanted to see Dort hit that game winner over James Harden, so they could slander him for being outplayed by Dort in a final game. They wanted that so badly, they did not receive, and so now Houston has advanced as well. And so that was a great Game 7. It was a great series, and yeah, that was one I was surprised came to fruition on my bracket. I called Houston in 7, and I'm surprised that it actually ended up that way, because it was points in the series where it looked like OKC might just be overmatched, but because they were missing Westbrook for a couple of those games, and because of the way they matched up, and with the 3-point droughts, it went the distance, man. It did go the distance. And so that yielded us the second round with Denver and the Clippers and the Lakers and the Rockets. And so Clippers will be playing again tonight. I hope that series turns out somewhat close. I don't want to just see a sweep. I'd like to see some close game, but I did my predictions, and you guys know where I stand with that. What I saw from Houston and the Lakers last night. So the Lakers totally lacked energy. Like, I know that sounds like some cliche bullshit, but they really did, man. Like, they, aside from a couple of LeBron plays where he just targeted Westbrook, a couple of blocks and the dunks, by the end of that game, it looked like Houston was a more energized team. Of course, this was one of the most fascinating series, because we're now looking at it where LA has Anthony Davis, who's what is that what y'all call the best big man in the league, if not the second best? He's right there, right? Top 5 player in the league. And there's Houston, who's playing small ball. And so of course that's the big conversation, right? Is if Houston is to pull this out, what is AD's role in all this? And last night he had, I think his final total was like 22 and 12. But again, it's to think about stats, right? I'm watching them play, and all credit to PJ Tucker. The memes are funny. You'll even see them show up on my likes. I think the memes are hilarious with PJ Tucker being a center, and they show the Monstars thing where he's getting squished by AD and from the Space Jam gig. I think that's hilarious. But PJ, at the end of the day, I do understand that PJ Tucker works really, really hard on defense, especially to be his size playing center. He works really hard in Houston. Playing this style of basketball never had any intention of just having one player guard the bigger guys and letting them post up. They've never leaned on that. And they in the playoffs right now are playing great defense. And I get that. That's cool. But I need to see when Anthony Davis has the ball, I want him to do more than, face up and shooting over guys and fadeaways, because he shot pretty well last night. I think, what was he, 9 of 15? Something like that. And a lot of it was jump shots. But I don't think that's how he's most effective here. I think whether he makes or misses those, because at the end of the day, you know where Houston stands. Houston knows that at a certain point, they're going to try their hardest, but they might be giving up some things. They might be giving up rebounds, which last night, I think that tally wasn't, it was either not that far off, or it was like tied in rebounds or something ridiculous, considering they're playing a team with bigs and a team that was playing two bigs. But they understand on a lot of nights they might be giving up something. And I know what AD's game is. I know that that's one of the things that's made him one of the best big men in the league, is that he is going to, he can be very powerful down low, but he's got the jump shot as well. And he's got the face up game as well. But in a series like this, they need to put more pressure to beat Houston. I think they need to put more pressure on them, because you're gift wrapping, you're doing PJ Tucker a favor. When PJ Tucker is really aggressive and he uses his body well, he uses his height and strength really well to guard guys bigger than him. But when you face him up and you just take a jump shot over him, make or miss, I think you're doing him and Houston's defense a favor. I think you're doing it a favor, whereas if you're Anthony Davis, you know that you can get to no matter what PJ Tucker does, you know that you can get closer to the rim. You know that you can push your way closer to the rim. You can make Houston's defense collapse in, and you can create opportunities for other guys. But you can hit jump shots over them all day and still lose like you did last night. And so I'm looking for that to be an adjustment this series for the Lakers, where they tell AD, play like a big man. Play like a big man, because last night there was a couple of plays where I saw Houston and I was like, oh, Houston thinks he's soft. The way PJ Tucker was bodying him up, how James Harden looked at him after he tried to take the charge, and it turned out to be an and one from Harden. I was like, oh, Houston thinks he's soft right now. Houston, they're starting to, especially if they win the next game, they're going to be feeling themselves a little bit, because this is a great big man. But if he plays more like a guard, even if his numbers are nice, even if he comes out averaging like 27 points and 12 rebounds on 50%, they could still very well be losing. And I think that's an adjustment I'll be looking at. Houston, again, they're going to be throwing different guys at him. They'll have a 6'7" guy on him sometimes, sure. But AD, at the end of the day, is one of the best big men in the league. I'm not saying play like Shaq and dunk on them every time. Like, I think that's a very basic analysis of what would happen here, because Houston's defense they're not looking to allow that. They'll let somebody else shoot a three. But make them commit. Make them feel that pressure. Because if you just face up every single play and just take a jump shot, sure. But they're going to come on the other end, and they're going to score too. That's the underrated part here, right? Is that James Harden, again, had a good game last night. Their guards are going to have good games. They're going to get open shots when they want them, because LA, I think there was a couple of possessions at the beginning of the game where they played good defense, but Houston can always create open 3-point shots. And so, okay, cool. Anthony Davis hit a couple of mid-range jumpers on us. We'll make that up. We'll have threes on the other end. And so, foul trouble, possibly, by forcing your way inside a little bit more if you're Anthony Davis, collapsing the defense. Those are some things I want to see, but also I want to see with their lineups. Why is Rondo playing? I'm for real, bro. Look, ex-Celtic. I love Rondo, but why is he on the floor with LeBron James? He doesn't seem as horrid at 3-point shots as he once was. He'll even make a couple throughout the game, but from a tactical standpoint, from an X's and O's, teams will be okay if you have Rondo, and especially Dwight as well, on the floor with LeBron James. They're okay with that because they understand how LeBron works. He's not shooting the mid-range much these days, so it's 3-pointers or, obviously wanting to get inside, and so that takes space. For him to be best at what he's choosing to be best at these days, it takes space. And okay, if you're just gonna have Rondo dribble around and from time to time take a three, okay, if he makes the occasional three, if he ends up with 2 or 3 of them, whatever. But again, if that shows up in the score box and Houston's won, it's because what you're doing favored them. And so people, Rondo just came back, actually. That was his first game. But I see Laker fans all the time talk about it, and I agree with them. Rondo, he'll have his moments. He'll definitely have his moments. But I don't understand from a lineup standpoint how it makes sense to play him sometimes. And so there'll be adjustments, I believe. LA lost game 1 against Portland. This is not Portland at all. So I don't even know why I just brought that up. But hopefully they come out with some better lineups. Hopefully they come out with a better plan of attack of actually using AD to put pressure and not just get numbers, because that's the difference, right? Again, with the people who come at my mentions with Giannis's numbers, I'm like, there's a difference between numbers and how you play the team, and one can get numbers and one can result in wins. Hell, that was even true back in 2014 when LeBron James played the Spurs and he had amazing numbers against that team. But if you go back and watch, it's like, when did those actually happen though? When was he actually putting pressure on the defense, and when was these just him hitting, or when was it just him hitting a couple of threes while they were down 25, right? Yeah, you actually have to see these games. So hopefully they come out with something better, because again, my bracket, I picked LA to win this one. I wasn't shocked at all last night. I was shocked that the way they lost, but I wasn't shocked that Houston won, because I'd been saying that Houston could beat anybody, and I gave them 2 games out of this series too. So if they win 2 or 3 games, I'm not shocked. Also, I want to see the Battle of LA too, so we'll see. I mean, LeBron has made a whole career out of responding, basically. And so going down 0-2 against a team like Houston, where especially if they beat you the same way they just did last night, then I think you have something to be worried about. But LeBron has a habit of coming out when it seems like they're on the brink, or her team is just about to figure them out, and then he comes through and reminds everybody. So we'll see. We'll see what adjustments happen in that series. And the Clippers are up 1-0, and they'll be there. The Clippers will be there. If there's no injuries, the Clippers will be in the conference finals. So it's just a matter of who meets them there. I don't really even need to talk about the Denver series much, because I broke that whole thing down of why I thought Denver was going to lose that. Don't think they match up well on the wing. Jokic pick and roll defense is ass. And then, there's Kawhi Leonard, best player at the playoffs. And so that's kind of where the playoff bracket stands right now. What are the most likely finals? Who are even the favorites right now? This is why I love the way the NBA is without super teams, because out of the East, now that Miami's up 3-0 and Boston could presumably be up 3-1 by the end of tonight, that would basically make Miami and Boston. I mean, Boston could blow a 3-1 lead. We just saw that happen, especially in the bubble. Teams are probably prone to that, right? But the most likely thing would be Celtics and Heat, and out of that, who makes it? I think that's going to be split right down the middle with where guys are choosing. That'll just be something that has to be played out on the floor. I'm not even sure who I'd pick in that series yet. So who's even the favorite? And then LA, Clippers, Houston with that range I talked about, this ridiculous range where they could have lost in the first round, but they could also beat any team in this bracket right now just because of the way they play. It's so unorthodox that they could theoretically beat any team. And man, anybody's got a shot right now. Out of the teams left, let's say LA, Houston, Clippers, Miami, and Boston all have a chance at a title right now, I would say. That would be my assessment. Because even if Toronto comes back and eliminates Boston, I don't think they're going to win the championship this year. I think there's some pretty clear limitations for them in playoff basketball. So that's my thought process there. And I think that'll probably be it for the NBA section. I'll move on to the questions, which are still NBA related. A lot of these were NBA related. I think there was only 2 that weren't. Actually, I will not be moving on to the NBA section, or moving off of the NBA section to questions. I think I'm going to be talking about 2K now. Yeah, I'm done with the playoffs. Let's move on. Okay, so 2K came out, 2K21 came out, and current gen, obviously, again, for some reason people are just having the hardest time. That shit is, that's beating y'all ass, bro. Just wrong one. I almost played the Kawhi AA. Next gen and current gen is whooping y'all ass on Twitter, bro, because I see this thing, and it'll be right under a post of something advertising current gen 2K21, and dudes are like, oh yeah, this is next gen. Like what are you talking about? My goodness.
What?
Halfway.
Anyways, I played it, I got it. I'm a content creator, so I just spent the year on 2K20 where by the end of Legends League on Twitch, I didn't even want to play that damn game anymore. But with it, things can always be more fun on Twitch because you got a chat there, and my chat just happens to be hilarious, and so we can make anything fun. And so I wasn't just not gonna play this. I'm actually having a bit of fun with it. And specifically, we'll be talking about like that shot meter and the things that people would be most interested in, because those are the changes, right? First of all, on the surface level, I have played a bit. I even played Play Now Online. I do that at the end of every stream now. I play like one Play Now Online game, because I've realized nobody cares about Play Now Online. Like it's a sad thing, right? Where Like, it's the most basic form of basketball. It's a one-on-one, just you and somebody else pick up a controller and play each other. Like, it's fun, but like people, you know, think that that's some weird mode to play. I mean, first of all, playing out online has sucked for years, so let me agree with you there with that tier system. I totally understand why nobody, you know, messes with it. But for a series with people watching, I think it actually is quite interesting. But I picked that up at the end, and so that's why I can actually evaluate gameplay, because that's different than playing my career, which when you play in high school and college, it feels like it's pretty much on rookie. So that end you're playing, you're only controlling your player unless you get team takeovers. So it's hard to evaluate the game with just, you know, your guy and your build, because you're really evaluating your build and his strengths. So I played a couple of Play Now Online games, and I will say the game actually, you can feel the difference. Now that I'm actually playing it, now that I'm, you know, playing with other teams and whatnot, and not just in this demo, you can feel the difference with because there's a learning curve with some of it. I think dribbling definitely feels different. It actually feels easier to pull off some of the moves. So when I see an opportunity, like right now, Play Now Online, everybody who plays it sucks. The game just came out, so everyone else is also in the learning curve. And so guys are leaving their defense just wide open. They don't have like they don't have help defense. Sometimes they'll be like pressuring you past half court and there'll be nobody standing behind them. But it feels easier to attack some of that space. Even in the half-court offense, it feels easier to attack space and go behind your back and get past your guy. I think that feels a little bit different. Layups are definitely different, because I accidentally, like, I was trying to do a left-handed layup. This part is on stream. You'll see it on VOD 2K, because I figured out what I'm gonna do is for Play Now Online, I thought I was gonna cut the episodes up and, you know, put them on my second channel. But like second channel is still being tinkered with. I'm just gonna put the Play Now Online games on VOD 2K, just throw that shit there, and don't need to spend too much time on that, because nobody cares about Play Now Online anyways. It's not worth the effort of actually cutting and making a series, in my opinion. But anyways, I tried a left-hand layup and I totally fucked it up, because the layups are different with the stick and whatnot, and you have a good amount of control of what you do. So they did make a point to talk about that, of being able to control what you do with a layup instead of just going left or right. Yeah, I tried something and my finger slipped, but the player, I forgot who it was, I think it was Lonzo Ball, I can't remember, or maybe it was Josh Jackson, I can't remember, but he did exactly like what my finger did with the analog, like the way he twisted his arm and tried to like adjust for the layup. He did exactly what I did, and I was like, oh shit, like I was just trying to do a left-handed layup. And so it definitely does feel different in that. For better or for worse, the game does feel different than 2K20. I can't tell which one I'm playing now, having played, you know, Legends League all that time, and, you know, basically knowing, just having all the feel for 2K20 and knowing what that felt like. 2K21 does feel a bit different there. And even, yeah, as I'm playing it, some of the courts look different as well. I think they've changed some of the color inside some of the arenas, and so it doesn't look exactly like 2K20, but it's still very close. This game, if you're looking for a new experience and a fresh batch of graphics, you're not gonna get it. They changed a couple of cyber faces, but you know, it's just as somebody who played the game all last year, you know, I can see some tiny differences, but nothing crazy with graphics at all, as would be expected. The shot meter, even Damian Lillard complained about the shot meter. I turned that off. not the meter. Shot aiming. I turned that bullshit off. I turned that off because it was ruining my experience. Look, I'm self-awareness, right? I will just be an average 2K player. I'm not trying to go pro. I'm not trying to be on the esports team. I'm not trying to be the best at this damn game, right? Sometimes I'm just trying to have fun and compete with a couple of guys, but I'm not trying to reach the top of some fucking leaderboard. I turned it off and I felt so good, because I actually, if you watch my first Play Now Online game, that's what happened. I got my ass beat. I only lost by 6, because like by the halfway through the game, I started to figure out some angles. But I was using the pro stick, and really I was using the pro stick in the post. That's where I mostly use. Like I use square to shoot, but I'll use the pro stick in the post. But the thing is, to get a post move off, first of all, I told y'all like a couple of podcasts ago that shit sounded confusing. I had no clue what Mike Wang was trying to say in terms of how to actually use the pro stick. All right, shot stick. I think I'm mixing those up. I might be. I don't know. Yeah, I had no clue what he was talking about. And when you try to do a post move, this is mostly, it was showing itself in my career because I'm a center. And you already have to move the analog a certain way to get a certain post move. But then in that short window between when your player goes up for the shot and when he releases it, you've got to aim within that tiny shot meter. So you got to like move the analog certain ways to aim it and have that little meter get inside the little sweet range so you can try to get a green or try to get a good shot. Fuck that. No, why would I want to do that? Do I have a sound effect for that? I don't. No. Yeah, no, I don't have one. Just no. Just no. You can turn it off if you want to. You can turn shot aiming off. Shot aiming, I remember, was introduced in 2K17, and I hated it. I remember a specific game I was playing. I was playing one night in my dorm. I was the Celtics and the guy was the Knicks, and I heard him on the mic, and he was like, "Come on, bro, even you know this is bullshit," because he was missing like wide open layups like under the rim and whatnot after he beat me. I was like, "Yeah, he's got a point," and I've always hated shot aiming since then. And they brought it back. And if you're a 2K head and you just like you want to be the best, and you can master it and it'll give you a boost. But if you're like me and you just sometimes just want to play the game and have a little bit of fun, then no, I'm not doing all that, fam. And that's just the aiming, right? The shot meter itself, since I've had a bit of time with it, I don't like it. It's not a thing that compared to other shot meters in the past, I just think it's unnecessarily complicated, because you have like a range inside of the shot meter, and then you have that little black mark where you have to try to hit, and that's your sweet spot, right? It's like that's so unnecessarily complicated to me compared to when you have just like the 2K17 shot meter under your feet where you were trying to time it, that little bar filled up. I think that was a lot more fun to deal with. And I guess with shot aiming and the shot meter, they're trying to create a skill gap. That's what they're going for. And so, they're going to do what they do with that. Mike Wing even said, like, if you want, I think he had horrible advice this morning. I'm just going to say, he tweeted out, he was like, yo, yeah, if you need to see the shot meter, you can zoom in on your camera a little bit more, your game camera. So I play on the 2K camera, as do probably most people. He's saying that you can zoom in on your camera and try, so the meter will be bigger so you can actually see it. I'm like, wait, so I have to change my whole camera experience so I can see this difficult ass meter? It's like, how about y'all blow the meter up, maybe, like, make it a little bit bigger, since you're obviously going to keep it as a feature of the game. And yeah, shooting it's pretty difficult, right? In the couple of Play Now Online games I played, I'm straight up letting guys shoot right now, because it's the first few days of the game. So I'm like, everyone's having a hard time with shooting right now. I played against a guy using the Suns last night. He had Devin Booker. I was like, yeah, I'll just let you shoot, because I think most people you run into online right now aren't gonna know how to. So I just had to back off of them. We were like, please take that shot. Although the first guy I played, he used the Magic. He seemed like he had a pretty good idea of how to time it. He was one of those that you're gonna run into some guys that are just good and know what they're doing. But I'll take my chances. And yeah, shooting is really hard for me. Maybe it's because I'm using the Pelicans and they don't really have like incredible shot makers, but I haven't made one shot with JJ Redick yet. I've had numerous open Brandon Ingram shots I haven't made. I have guys in the mid range I try to shoot with. I'm not making any of those. And so people are going to be asking for a patch and asking for a hot fix. I don't know if one is on the way yet, but apparently, like, right now on the park, guys are getting like all the rebounds because everyone's missing shots. And 2K, they eventually crack under pressure most years, right? They eventually patch these things. They the people complain and the game looks totally different 2 weeks later. So everything I'm saying right now might not even matter. We'll see what happens with that. And as far as enjoyment, I mean, look, again, I'm a content creator. My friend, the Magic fan, he's the one I normally play park with. He said he's just waiting until next gen because he didn't see anything that made him feel like he should go buy it. And yeah, look, if you don't make content with this game and if you're only gonna play it one time on Saturday, I don't think you need it. Because it's not a crazy different experience. A lot of the historic teams are missing guys. A lot of guys have been out of the league for more than 1 year, so 2K doesn't have the rights anymore, and I guess they hadn't tracked them down. However, that doesn't happen because it's not like y'all don't have ways to contact. Like you have contacts with like all NBA players in the league right now, right? Or most of them. Like you can find anybody you want, it seems like. But I saw Ronnie 2K tweet out that's the reason that they didn't have the Lakers, the Kobe Bryant Lakers, is because they can't get in touch with Andrew Bynum. I'm like, yo, even if you get in touch with him and he doesn't want to be in the game, like fuck him. Fuck him. Like, who cares? We will play Gasol at center and ultimate power forward. You don't have to have him. Hell, we won a championship on Legends League. You giving Josh Powell minutes? Like, fuck him. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't have a Lakers team with. Why you wouldn't have a Lakers team in a game dedicated to Kobe Bryant? Like, you're not gonna have a new Lakers team. Maybe they're saving that for next gen. Yeah, so the roster's missing a lot. The menus, they didn't do any effort on the menus. When you load up the game, like we were on stream and I loaded up the game and I thought the game was still loading and I was like, oh wait, no, this is the user interface. Yeah, so it doesn't have that nice backdrop that 2K19 and 2K20 had. They got rid of that, which I feel like it could have just kept that. I don't know why they got rid of it. The cutscenes in my career were playing at like 10 frames a second, I'm not sure if optimization has anything to do with cutscenes, but it feels like they spend no time on that. Even though the My Career story this year is actually pretty decent, we had a lot of fun with it. They got rid of most of the cringe. I'm not gonna say they got rid of all the cringe, but they got rid of most of it. There's no Be Fresh level bullshit in this. And there was a moment where Damian Lillard comes in. I think he's one of the only players he's one of the only players you interact with. They also have Zion Williamson. But Damian Lillard, he just did a bang up job with the voice acting, especially because during the career we were talking about like the 2K15 voice acting and how fucking terrible that was, bro.
Delete that footage.
that should have been Dion Waiters telling 2K to get his part the fuck up out of there. If y'all remember that back in the day, they should have took his audio out, delete that shit, man, because it was embarrassing. And him, Corey Brewer, hell, even KD sounded like he didn't want to be there. Like all those guys gave no effort. It felt like they were like contractually obligated to be there. However, Damian Lillard, being the cover athlete, he comes in and he talks to your player, and he's actually, it sounds good. It sounds like he's actually trying to have a conversation with you. It sounds like not exactly like he would talk to you in real life, but it sounded good, man, for the standards that have been set, because the bar has been on the floor. It was pretty cool. And yeah, the story it's decent, man. It's halfway decent. Of course, there's still some moments in there where it's like, this would never happen, this is stupid, but other than that, compared to other My Career stories, and especially being a current gen game where I didn't even know if they were gonna have a story this year, because obviously they've got something completely different coming for next gen as well. Yeah, I was surprised there. So yeah, being a content creator and being able to play it with people watching me, I think that might have enhanced my experience, because we were laughing at a lot of shit and making jokes throughout the career. Chat was able to help me, make certain decisions. And so yeah, for someone like me, it is a bit of fun. And watching my build go from complete trash, like a trash 60 overall, and not even being able to jump like 2 inches off the floor to, seeming like it might have a bit of potential eventually. Like I'm gonna stick with it, because I don't even like My Career. I've never been a My Career player. I've only ever played Park with my friend. And so I'm like, building what I built this year. I built a glass cleaning finisher from Essence of Clutch. He's been doing 2K builds. Check his channel out if you want. He makes dope mixes, but he's also been making builds. And so that was just the first video I ran into, and I was like, I don't care about My Career. I'm just gonna make this. And it's a glass cleaning finisher. Can't shoot for shit. Eventually it'll be able to dribble. And go off the dribble and play probably like Zion. I think is what the most comparable thing would be. It said that the build came out like Ben Wallace and whatnot, but from what he showed off, like what it can do at its max potential, it can actually do a lot more than a Ben Wallace. So that's not a direct comparison. So yeah, getting it to a high level, and the people who were there to see it when it was garbage, I think that was kind of fun. But yeah, again, if you're just gonna play this once or twice a week, or when you have some time off work, it's not gonna be fun for you probably, and you just save your money until next gen, because that is, wow man, 2 months from now we will be like right in the thick of things for PS5. Like the election will have already happened. Wow, the election is less than 2 months away. That's gonna be fun for America, the United States. Yeah, and I think like a couple of weeks after that we'll probably be looking at PS5, and I am super excited for that. Specifically what's making me excited with that, not just 2K and I've already talked about being a content creator, but some of the games I'm playing at the end of this life cycle for PS4, namely Avengers. I'm playing Avengers right now. I started it on stream, and to be honest with you, again, just with time and all that, I really have time to bring other games on stream right now. It's just difficult, man. Between posting and doing the podcast and then spending hours streaming the 2K sim and then 2K21 as well, it's just so hard to get different games on there, especially when fucking Spectrum decides to cut my internet off at midnight without telling anybody there's maintenance. That's crazy, man. They shut me off twice, two nights in a row they shut me off. And normally I get on at midnight after games and stream. And Spectrum just decides, okay, we're gonna do maintenance, but we're not gonna email any of our customers and tell them like, hey, don't be doing anything important at midnight, at 12 o'clock, because we're gonna cut it off. Like, fam, if you want to do unplanned maintenance, why not wait until like 4 to 6 a.m. range? That's beautiful, because nobody's really doing anything then, or maybe 3 to 6 a.m., something like that, right? They wait from 12 to 1. And so I was playing Avengers, but yeah, then that got shut off. And I think I enjoy games like that on my own anyways. I might bring it back to stream, but Avengers is beautiful. It's a really fun game, really beautiful game, and I'm like, yo, I'm playing it on my TV, and I'm like, yo, PS5 is gonna enhance this. I wonder how much, because although the characters seem like they can move a bit stiff sometimes, it is a really gorgeous game with gorgeous set pieces and everything. So yeah, I'm really excited for what this the end of this year might hold in terms of tech. I don't know what else it holds, but in terms of tech and whatnot, I am pretty excited. Okay, let me wrap this up because I gotta get this thing rendered and uploaded. I already answered your question about Utah and Denver. Edgar asks, it seems that they are open to having more family in the bubble as more teams leave. If that trend continues, do you think there's a possibility for a small number of fans getting to watch the finals in person? I don't know, because I was thinking about that. Yeah, like there will only be 2 teams left for the finals, right? So, and if you've been looking at the courts and you see when the camera sometimes shows the other side, you can see that there's seats up there, and you can see that there's a couple of people standing around. And I've actually seen on the sidelines, especially since the families have came, like there's more and more people. It's looking like a middle school game now, right? I haven't heard them I don't think so, just from right now where we are. I mean, they even said that coaches aren't allowed to have their family yet, and Mike Malone, I don't think they're ever gonna be allowed to have their family in the bubble, and Mike Malone just lashed out about that the other day because some of these teams still might have like another month here. Well, it's really only gonna be a couple, but yeah, it's getting hard for some of these guys. And if they're not even letting coaches have their family in because they're trying to mitigate the risk that much, I don't think they'll be having any type of fan attendance, to be honest with you. I mean, in theory, maybe they'll do something. Maybe they could have some competition and let a couple of fans in. They could if they wanted to, but just based off of like how much money this costs them to do and how clean they're trying to be with this and trying to pull this off, I don't think they want to risk it at all, especially because it's not going to make any kind of difference probably, unless they were able to fill up that whole row up there, which I don't think they want to do. I don't think they'll be pushing it, and I don't think they'll, because in the fan, like what fans would be able to come anyways, right? Because you have to quarantine to get in there, to get into the campus environment. Like they have to make sure you're somebody, they have to make sure you ain't the ops, bro. Make sure that you don't bring anything with you, and so like that just adds to the risk to have people there. And it's a bubble. They're trying to, if you're there, you need to be there, and if you're not, you need to not be here. And so I don't think they want any kind of in and out. And so long story short, nah, I don't see them doing that, especially without, the big thing there is without letting coaches have their family. I highly doubt that. Do you think Harden has any chance for a ring? Cole asked this. This guy named Cole. He says, do you think Harden has any chance for a ring with the Rockets if he doesn't get it there this year? Well, I mean, again, nobody knows what the future holds because the fuck, man. People out here slamming it in doors. Like, you don't have to close it that hard, do you? Like, shit. I'm pretty sure my mic picked that up. One year ago we thought the Sixers future was just bright. Like they had 4 legitimate players on the team. They looked like they could have beaten Toronto, and we were like, yeah man, Ben Simmons and Embiid, like it's impossible for this team not to succeed. And now we don't even know if they're going to be playing together next season. Like things change like that, right? And so I do think like had Houston had lost in the first round, they were going to have to look at some major shakeups because what they're trying is unorthodox anyways. And so in the event that it failed that badly, it's like, okay, now we got to go a different direction. If you lose to the Lakers, which most people expected them to, then you start to wonder like, okay, how much different are they going to be? But the window is not first of all, the opportunities that they have for change are not huge, because like you're not really trading James Harden, and you just got Westbrook last year, so what are you going to do with him? And if you were going to send him off somewhere, where would you send him off? There's like so many questions, right? You don't have a ton of flexibility with the changes that you would make, and a window for contending gets smaller every single year. Harden's been trying for a while now with Houston. But you just never know. I do think there'll be some shakeups this year if it doesn't happen, which I don't expect it to. But you just never know what the future holds. Like a team is sitting here, and then the next thing you know, they have a second star with them, or some blockbuster trade happens. But I don't think this is like for them. I think the bigger thing was to not go out prematurely. I think that was the bigger thing. I think that was a bigger conversation when it looked like they could get eliminated in the first round. They go, like, let's say they even get to the conference finals now and lose. Again, I think that's just kind of well within expectations for them. Although they obviously they are going for the title. This is not the team with Chris Paul. This is not the team that was only losing to the Warriors. Because for the last few years, him and Chris Paul had only lost to the Warriors. And so now you change that when you add Westbrook. I don't think the fit is exactly the same. I don't think it works as well as it did when it was Chris Paul and Harden. But Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. I don't think any kind of door definitively shuts or anything. They don't win this year, but I think they already avoided the worst by not going out in the first round to the team they did the deal with. That would have been humiliating. That'd have been terrible. And then the very last question, not basketball related at all, since we are in September, which is we're less than a month away from Halloween season, October. Somebody asked my favorite horror movies, because y'all know me. I start celebrating holidays early, bro. Like, we're in September. This has been a terrible year, especially this year. I'm like, throw them pumpkins up, bro. Like, about a week from now, like I need my Halloween decorations in a week from now. I start shit early, especially this year. Favorite horror movies. Wow, I didn't think about this before. I wrote it down and I didn't even think about it, because namely, when I talk about horror movies, I always talk about how much like nothing scares me anymore, and I'm disappointed because of that. Like, I can never get hype off of a horror movie now. I've watched so many throughout my life, and then I grew up and it's just like, yo, this shit is stupid. A lot of them are cliche. It's just a bunch of jump scares, and when somebody about to pop out, and if they don't pop out right there, then they're behind the person. Like, they're predictable. I have a favorite horror series, obviously. The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. Yeah, that was a beautiful series. I watched that every Halloween season. I watched that. Watched it in 2018. Tried to rewatch it in 2019. I'm not sure if I got to the end or not. This year, they're coming out with a follow-up to that, which is not actually related to it. I think it's called The Haunting of... It starts with a B. I don't know. They said they're using some of the same actors, but it's going to be a different story. They're telling some horror story from the 1800s. And so, yeah, I'll be watching that. But then movies. Your question specifically for movies. I don't think why did I write this down? I don't really have anything for you. Saw is not a horror movie. Saw is more mystery. Saw is just more mystery, and then you act surprised at the end where you knew there was some major twist, but the twist still surprised you, right? Yeah, dog. I don't have a go-to horror movie anymore. Jason is not scary. Jason is just funny. Freddy Krueger is funny. I remember when I was a kid, like, Chucky was scary only for a little bit, but then it just became funny. Insidious is I guess I like the Insidious series a little bit. What was it? Insidious is not the one where shit just falls all the time, right? Like, you see a camera panning around the house and shit is falling. Which movie is that? Is that Insidious? I don't know, man. I shouldn't have even wrote this one down, because I think I wrote this down just to talk about how horror movies have, failed me over the last years. Like, I watched a couple of years ago, I remember there was supposed to be like a really scary movie. I think Conjuring, they said, was scary. And I watched that bitch at like 4 o'clock or 3 or 4 in the morning one time a couple of years ago, and I was like, yeah, it's cool or whatever. I don't know, nothing really gets me, man. But if you're looking for recommendations of a series, yeah, Hill House, that's a beautiful series. All right, I'm done here. We are about an hour and 20 minutes in. I used a couple of sound effects today. I think I gotta throw like most used sound effects into a folder on my Stream Deck that I specifically will use for a podcast, because I have like 5 or 6 pages here and it's hard to like talk and scroll through them and find what I'm looking for, because on stream there's more margin for error with that. Anyways, I appreciate y'all being here. If you enjoyed this podcast, you know that it's always on Spotify and iTunes, and a link with that is in the comment section and description. And yeah, hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and enjoy the rest of the playoffs. And yeah, bell next to the channel name if you want notifications every time a podcast drop. All right, I'm out.